Good afternoon, Ambassador Jean-Peter Kjemprud. Do let the readers know who you are and what what country you represent in Africa, in Nigeria.
I'm the ambassador of Norway to Nigeria since 2016.
Okay. And to the next question, what's the volume of trade between Nigeria and Norway like?
I wish I could give you an exact number,
Okay.
but most or many Norwegian companies are who are active in Nigeria are part of multinational companies. So when they do their accounting, it doesn't necessarily reflect their transactions between. Is not defined as transactions between Norway and Nigeria. So it's very, very difficult to calculate. The biggest Norwegian oil company has a turnaround about between 4 and 5 billion US dollars in Nigeria. And that's only one of approximately 70 Norwegian companies in Nigeria. So I've been saying that estimately it's 20-30 billion
Euros?
US dollars.
US dollars.
But it varies from year to year. But with the number of companies, we believe it's around that amount, and that includes also Norwegian fish exports, which is approximately 200 million US dollars annually, particularly stockfish to Nigeria.
Interesting. In what although you mentioned some, in what sectors are the volumes of trade strongest?
It is the oil and gas sector, which is the biggest between our two countries. As I said, we have that high number of companies. It's offshore subsea, because that's where we have our specialized companies. Shipping, we have approximately one Norwegian ship docking in Lagos every day through the air in average. So shipping is also an important and shipbuilding for Nigerian companies who is predominantly active in the offshore subsea sector also. So fisheries, oil and gas, and shipping are the three biggest. Then we are moving into renewable energy. We have a few companies active in that as well.
In what areas do you think the balance of trade can be improved or strengthened?
That's a complicated thing, because Norway and Nigeria basically are active we are both oil and gas producers. So we don't buy Nigerian. I mean, we do some crude oil purchases in Nigeria, and we sell some refined products. But basically, Nigeria and Norway is competitors in the same market. So for Nigeria to strengthen the trade balance, which is very uneven now, it would have to be probably in the agricultural sector, fisheries, and manufacturing.
Interesting. Without to the next question, without any doubts, I think there should be firms which utilize the favorable financial systems in Norway. Do you mind letting the readers know some of those firms and some of those financial systems in Norway that companies can take advantage of?
I think what we see is that there are quite a few Nigerian business people who are investing in Norwegian companies, in stocks on the Norwegian stock exchange, which is basically financial investments rather than than investments because of particular competence and so on. But I think I think there's I often use as an example that in Oslo, our capital, you can buy lobster for $100 a kilo. So any company in Nigeria who could penetrate the Scandinavian and the Norwegian market, where you have to deliver on very high quality but also high value. If you manage to penetrate that market, you would also could be successful in other European markets and American markets. So it's a good test. They are small markets, but if you succeed, you have the competence to do it also, because you have to have the whole value chain. From the quality of the product to the logistical delivery on time and all of these things. If you manage in this market, then you could be successful in any market.
Interesting. To a question that has been on my mind for a while. How has Norway been able to, should I use the word, multiply the profits accrued from our natural resources? It's
a little bit different. A little bit of difference between Nigeria and Norway, because Norway was already a quite rich country when we found our oil.
Really?
We had a strong manufacturing industry based on a safe and substantial power supply, which means manufacturing could benefit from cheap electricity, which made Norwegian industries and manufacturing competitive in the world market. So we developed our electricity supply through the 1920s and 1930s with a lot of external investment, particularly from the US and the UK. So based on that on that industrial base, that's when we found our oil in the 1960s. So we didn't need to push the profits from the oil sector into our economy. So at a later date, when the major investments have been done in the Norwegian oil industry, we established a sovereign wealth fund, of which only 3% of the profit of the fund is utilized or put into our running budgets every year. So we're not dependent on our oil income. We put it into the sovereign wealth fund, which is now more than 1,000 trillion US dollars in worth, and is investing in, I think it's more than 100 countries, which owns approximately 1.5% of every share in the world, on the stock exchanges of the world, and has invested in Nigeria, and we're trying to have more investment in Nigeria. I think if you look at the figures, there's some 100 million US dollars investment in Nigeria in the last couple of years, and we hope that it will be growing.
For those who don't understand, and in simple, understandable English, what is the Norwegian Sovereign Wealth Fund all about?
It's a place where we can, instead of putting all the money into our annual budget, we put it into a mechanism. You could say it's a bank or a financial arrangement where we put our money, and from this financial arrangement, the investment is done around the world, so that you can earn more money from it than you do in having it in an ordinary bank account.
Interesting. The Nordic countries of Norway, Sweden, Denmark, and Finland, collectively as a bloc, seem to be leading in the way of ICT and education in the EU. Now, why this drive, and what are the lessons to be learned and applied to fit into different peculiarities on the African continent and especially in Nigeria?
I think it's how we see it is that, or how the economies have developed, is that the different Nordic countries have tried to focus on where they have comparative advantages. And in particular, Finland has been very, very particular and invested a lot in education and IT business. I mean, Nokia was one of the first companies who really had a breakthrough in the IT sector, and they have invested this and taken advantage of that in their education sector. Sweden have their specialities. We have looked into how we could continuously develop the oil sector, because if you compare oil fields which produced 20 years ago, we have developed technology which means that you can take out a much higher percentage of the oil in the oil wells. Like in some countries, only 20-25% of the oil are taken out of the wells. We have developed technology which means you could put not only water but other technology to get up to 80% of the oil out of the current oil fields. So that's why I said on this Nordic Nigerian Connect seminar a few weeks ago that rather than just looking for new oil fields, Nigeria should also take advantage of the technologies which is there to get more of the oil out of the current oil fields. So technology is a key, and that's where I think there could be some commonalities and common interest between our two countries, because we are active in the oil and gas sector, and the more you can use technology, the bigger profit and the more you can get out of the natural resources you have.
So the next question, there was a shipping conference in Norway, I think in June.
Yes.
Where a delegation of 80 Nigerians who have a thing or two to do with shipping, the shipping sector, attended. What was it about? Can you just summarize, elaborate on it?
The Norse shipping, as it's called, is, as I understand, one of the biggest shipping conferences in the world. So there was shipping people from all over the world attending. So it's a meeting place where a lot of contacts are made between shipping interest and companies from different parts of the world. But it's also again about technology. I mean, there was a lot of focus on new technology. I mean, even the shipping sector has to contribute substantially to stop the climate change challenges. I mean, if you look at the ships, they pollute, seriously contribute to pollution. So one of the topics of the conference was to look at how to use new technology, environmental friendly ways of tackling the new challenges in the industry. But it was also a particular day of African shipping, how to develop African shipping on the whole supply line, or if you can call it that, about properly run ports, the logistics from port to into the country. And also on Nigeria is considering putting up a new shipping line. They're considering establishing a shipping registry. So all of these things was on the agenda for the conference.
Interesting. Back to a Nigeria-related question. There's a relationship between you and Nigeria, which dates back to the early 90s. Would you want to talk about it? Probably a snapshot.
I was what we call desk officer for Nigeria in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in the 1990s during the Abacha regime, and as there was strong opposition to the Abacha regime after it was widely conceived that Abiola was robbed of his election in 1993.
Yes.
The formation of different opposition movements meant that we established some kind of contacts with the different movements, and in particular Nalikon, but also Nadeko and others, and in the fight for democracy, as it was seen at the time. We supported strongly what was later known as Radio Kudirat, and it was broadcasted from Norway. So I was in close touch with the leadership of Nalikon at the time. This was
Nadeko, right?
No, Nalikon.
Nalikon.
Yes. Which was run by Voloshoinka and Kayode Fayemi.
Okay.
And Radio Kudirat was established and broadcasted from Norway. And this hasn't been known officially until quite recently, when Kayode Fayemi wrote about it in his memoirs. So that's my first experience and connection with Nigeria, and I was so happy to come here in 2016 when democracy has taken root, and to have those kind of connections dating back to the 1990s, because I think everyone in Nigeria is now quite happy with the democracy compared to a military regime.
Interesting. So Radio Kudirat was being broadcast from
Norway, yes.
Not England, as
it was later transferred to broadcasted from London, but it started broadcasting from Norway. And the setup and the running of the radio was funded by Norway and Sweden, and also Westminster Foundation in the UK. So that was my first close relations to Nigerians and support to Nigerian democracy. So as a desk officer, I dealt with the establishment and running of this.
Interesting. How would you view the bilateral relationship between Nigeria and Norway?
They are very strong. Obviously based on trade relations, but we established our embassy here quite soon after independence, and the trade is not only a current trade with oil and gas, but it dates back to the 1890s.
Really?
When the first shipments of stockfish was taken into Nigeria. It originally came from Scotland, but I think the Scottish didn't manage to supply enough, so then Norway came into the market as early as 1890, which is more than 100 or nearly 130 years of trade. So that means there's a lot of personal relations, connections, which makes the relation stronger. We also have strong cooperation at the UN. Some of it naturally because we are over names alphabetically. We're sitting next to each other at the UN and at every international conference. So there's through the years developed a very close relationship also based on that natural or that geographical setting. But we are working closely with Nigeria on numerous issues internationally, and we are proud to work with Nigeria as one of the superpowers on the African continent. We are currently supporting Africa's call for a permanent seat on the Security Council. And we also work closely with Nigeria, for example, on the return of looted funds from the Abacha regime. So it, in a way, it goes in a circle. I mean, I started out as a desk officer helping the fight against Abacha, and now working on Norway and Nigeria working together to return the loots.
Interesting. As a seasoned diplomat, sir, if you had to recommend a book to read, what would it be?
Oh,
a book on diplomacy and international relations, what would it be?
On diplomacy and international relations.
Yes.
I would say, I mean, when you ask me just book, I would say I'm really, one of the books which really made me committed to work for the good of all people was the Antilles of the Savannah of General Jebel.
Really?
Incredible book. It really, I mean, it gives you such encouragement to do good. Books on diplomacy. I think it's important to read memoirs of different politicians. I'm probably not a what should I say? I mean, standard diplomat. I try to work more. I mean, through making connections with people who could make a change for the better in the countries where I've been serving. Because diplomacy, I mean, as a diplomat, my duty and obligation is to serve Norwegian interests. But I always define it also, I mean, Norwegian interest is not served without improving also not only relations, but also the economic and political development in the countries I work. So in a way, I mean, I've been described as an activist diplomat because I'm moving into trying to work with people, because it's only the people of the country who can change the situation in any country for the better. No diplomat can do it, but by giving encouragement and moral support to those people fighting for improved life of the ordinary people in any country, only that way you could help moving things.
Interesting. To the final question, what's the title of the book you are currently reading?
The book I'm currently reading? It's
So as you are saying, what's the title of the book you are currently reading?
It's a book of Elif Shafak, which is a Turkish author.
Okay.
And it's called the story of three women or something like that. But it's very political.
Okay, Elif Shafak.
Elif Shafak.
Elif Shafak. Okay. Okay.
But one book I really the last Nigerian novel I read was Orchestra of Minorities by Chigozie Obiosa.
Okay.
Very good.
Interesting.
Three Daughters of Eve. It's
Three Daughters of Eve. Okay. Three Daughters of Eve. Okay. Thank you very much for your time, sir.
Thank you so much for taking, and so sorry you had to wait.